You get full chip and coolant cleaning. So basically, as you cycle through, parts get lifted up, taken out of the chuck. We'll run a blast of cleaning air to make sure we have a nice clean surface for the next piece of tooling.
I got my buddy Matt Evans with me today. Extremely excited about this. Fifth Axis Workholding. Most of you know them with Run CNC, probably the most popular manufacturing brand we've ever seen. The brilliant mind behind that, my buddy Matt Evans. However, today, that technology, you know, the workholding of Fifth Axis, the reliability, the customer service that goes into it, the fact that they're always being innovative, well, guess what? They got even more innovative today, and we're doing a powerful new product release, which actually has some patents involved in it that I think you're gonna love today. So now that I got Matt here, Matt, automation is so very important. Automation is not the future, it is the now. It's how we compete, it's how we're efficient, but there are still some small hiccups here and there when we're thinking I gotta run through the nights and weekends, and if I look at my camera on my phone and my machine is shut down, maybe I'm not actually running. We're adapting situations, much like what we're gonna describe here today, that removes some of those questions or some of those issues that we run into. So let's talk about what you have created here at Fifth Axis Workholding that's going to help with that full automation that we're all trying to get to.
Yeah, well, great to see you, sir. It's always good to have you back in San Diego. Yeah, that's a perfect segue into some of the hardware we're going to talk about today. So our approach to automation hardware has been make it simple, make it reliable, and make sure you get good feedback. Those are really like the big metrics we're looking for. So one of the new products we have is our new pneumatic chuck. So, and we say it has pushers. So basically pushers or ejectors are like the main new feature with our chuck. So
if it's okay, Matt, I want to stop you there because I want to emphasize exactly what you're talking about. Because when you first described pushers to me, I had to ask, well, what does that mean?
Exactly.
So let's talk about what a pusher is and why a pusher is significant. And then we'll get into the other stuff also, because I know we're going to go through a lot of technology and I want to make sure the audience follows us along the way. So first, what is a pusher and why is that helpful?
Yeah, so we basically have a patented pusher or ejector system that helps lift the tooling out of the chuck, basically. So your normal, pneumatic chuck is basically air to open, spring to close, but it's not going to give any lift or assistance to the tooling.
Is that why I see it moving real slow when it goes into it for pickup and drop? I mean, really
very slow.
And then oftentimes I see alarms as well.
Yep.
Is this kind of what we're remedying here?
Exactly. So one big thing we worked on is we wanted to eliminate any resistance between the tooling and the chuck when the robot goes to basically lift it off the chuck or drop it onto the chuck. So the lifters really help alleviate that, makes it easy to load and unload. That's the main feature.
I like that a lot because I have seen so many times where a vise will actually load on top of a second vise because it's not reading it, or there'll be nothing and it's machining air. And if we're trying to get nights and weekends, if we're running through the night, like I know Chris wants to do, like I know Steve wants to do, like I know you want to do, and all of the people we're working with, we cannot have that downtime or those errors or those mistakes when no one's around. But I have a question for you.
Sure.
A lot of times when we're away, we also get chip buildup inside of these pockets here. Are you doing anything about that as well?
We are indeed. So one of the cool features that we were able to build into the lifters is we have little micro holes that shoot an air blast across the whole surface of the chuck.
Clever.
So we get full chip and coolant cleaning. So basically, as you cycle through, parts get lifted up, taken out of the chuck. We'll run a blast of cleaning air to make sure we have a nice clean surface for the next piece of tooling. That's another thing that you often see when you're running full lights out production. One little chip can cause chaos in the middle of the night. So that was a big factor. You touched on this as well. We also use these pushers and the air that we run through the chuck to run clamp, unclamp confirmation.
Okay.
So we know if tooling is in the chuck by the air pressure we're measuring. So that's how we know.
So you're measuring that the whole time?
The whole time. So you'll see a drop in pressure, so you know if you've got a piece of tooling in the chuck or if you do not, and that can communicate back to the machine and the robot.
With that technology, does it also read based on that pressure if I'm starting to lose pressure and maybe I'm not going to have the same rigidity that's necessary for my cut?
Yes, you can always, we can set up basically a set, range that you want to monitor, and you can absolutely monitor that if you're concerned about it.
That's intriguing.
Yeah.
I like it very much. Well, a lot of these setups that I see when it comes to automation, some of the solutions I see with one pull stud.
Sure.
But I'm noticing 4 holes right here. I'm assuming that not only is it standard throughout the industry where a lot of situations will adapt to your situation, but also I'm seeing 4 studs, which theoretically, in my mind, I instantly think of the same rigidity I was just questioning you about. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So there's really 2 things we tried to do with the pull studs in our chuck. One was we wanted to retain the 52 millimeter and the 96 millimeter spacing. So what you're looking at right here is the 96 millimeter. That refers to the 4 pull stud spacing, essentially. Smaller version being the 52, larger being the 96. So that means we don't need to change any of our tooling. So if you're a customer that has any 52 millimeter or 96 millimeter tooling, you can adapt that existing tooling to our automation. So you don't have to buy additional pallets. So that was the one big factor. The second factor was exactly as you touched on. You've got 4 pull studs now holding the tooling into the chuck. So you just get better rigidity for heavy roughing. We've seen some instances with a single pull stud design where you can get pallet vibration or you're, kind of lifting the tooling while you're really heavy roughing. You're not going to see that with our chuck. It's rock solid. Literally.
Rock solid from rock-like bases. I like the way you did that.
Yeah.
I want to touch on that a little bit more, and then I'm going to segue into some of the other areas and properties that we have here on the desk.
Sure.
But that makes sense to me, and I'm sure it makes sense to the audience as well. Just the simple math of 4 to 1, right? And that's maybe a technology has worked for a while, but to know I have now 4 to 1, that brings extra confidence to me to walk away from my machine, which I need in order to walk away from my machine.
100%.
So I like that very much. Before we move into this area here, I just want to ask you, and I know it's a Captain Obvious, probably rhetorical question, but I know the audience might be thinking it as well. With this new upgrade of automation, this pneumatic situation that allows us to be successful, these pushers, the air blast, am I still getting the same quality and precision that 5th Axis is known for on the manual load and unload as well?
Yes, you absolutely are. So your repeatability on these units is going to be exactly the same, 2 to 3/10, your standard repeatability. This unit is air to open, spring to close. What we're looking at right here is a bottom port, but we also make an option for side ports. So you can put it on a 3, 4, or 5 axis. We're behind the 5 axis, but 3, 4, and 5 axis. You can run it manually with a switch. It's a pneumatic chuck. So however you feel, it makes the most sense for your shop, it'll be a fit.
Well, you're a global company, so the fact that a lot of parts of the world right now are updating their 3-axis machines and other parts of the world are incorporating more 5-axis, it makes sense that because your customer service is second to none, that you are doing that for the entire world. So bringing it all together, extremely important. Thank you for doing that. Now let's segue into some of these other areas here. I see some shrunk grippers, but there are some parts of 5th Axis that are going into the setup we have behind us, right?
Yes, absolutely. So the chuck is really kind of where we start, right? So just like we do with our other rock lock systems, we start with the machine table first. So we'll put a pneumatic chuck on the machine, and then we start looking at our gripper and our cleat system, which is basically how we transport the tooling on a robot. So we do use a shunt gripper. We've got our own patented gripper fingers basically, and a cleat system. So our thinking with the transport system, if you will, is just like we do everything else. It's very simple, it's very rigid, and it's really easy to implement. So just like we did with the chuck where we didn't want to change any existing tooling, we didn't really want to have to do that with the gripper either. You see some grippers, we have to buy different vices, you have to modify them, you have to add all this additional stuff. We didn't want to do that. So we made it really, really simple. On this unit right here, 2 dowel pins, 2 threaded holes. You can adapt the cleat to your own fixtures. You can adapt it to our existing fixtures. That was a big thing we wanted to do because as a shop owner, you've already invested in tooling. You may have custom tooling. You don't want to reinvent. So making it easily adaptable to automation was a big thing for us. So you don't have to reinvest in brand new tooling when you already purchased stuff that you're using manually. So that was a big consideration.
Being easily adaptable to automation, I know, is a big deal for a lot of people.
Yes.
I also know it's a big deal for Fifth Axis to have the highest quality possibly that you guys can create, a globally known work holding system. However, sometimes when we're using steel bases, it can be a little heavy for some of the cobots that are out there right now. Obviously, this is a big one, but there's smaller ones out there, and we want to do automation. Have you guys adapted some of your work holding to be a little bit lighter and allow people to work on both the large and the small cobots?
It's so convenient that you asked that. I might just have something for you.
So we have a bunch of vices behind us. This whole system is running. Obviously, I asked that question because I do know what's coming, and I did it on purpose, which is why Matt and I get to laugh a little bit. But your bodies that you have created on some of the work holding over here, they're aluminum bodies instead of the steel bodies that you're known for. But we haven't really lost anything. And in fact, if anything, we may have gained the ability to be lighter and more mobile.
Yes, absolutely. So it's funny how sometimes you have original designs from years ago that we put aside. We start doing other stuff, and we actually came back to an original design, which is basically a two-piece vice-based design where you've got an aluminum body and a steel rail. And that suits automation really, really, really nicely because we're able to cut the weight basically by 50% of our standard vices. So you can take a 15-pound vice, and now it's roughly 7 pounds. And that's helped tremendously with cobots and even some of the industrial robots where you're limited on payload.
All right, Matt, I see that we have the vise now on the table. I think it's important to get a good close-up of the vise, but I have to also ask you a hard question before we even get started about the value and the lightness and the ability to go into automation, as we've discussed how important it is to be able to run through the night with confidence for all the reasons, right? The audience that watches our channel, they're engineers for the most part. They're decision makers. They're owners of companies, and they want to make sure that the information that they're receiving, I've asked some of the questions that they would like to ask, right? So because you and I both come from engineering backgrounds as well, we know aluminum is softer than steel. We just know. However, I would make the discussion that 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100 even, if I'm not ripping the mess out of my torque wrench, that aluminum body is going to be okay. Now, I've led you into that because if I'm wrong, correct me. If I'm right, amplify the truth. Whatever it might be. Are we losing? Are we gaining? How does this all work?
Yeah, so when we designed this unit, weight was a big consideration. We were trying to figure out how we could cut weight and not lose that rigidity. So clamping force, jaw lift, those are all considerations that we wanted to keep on par with our normal hardened steel vise, and we were able to achieve that with a mix of aluminum and steel. So we have steel rails that are kind of basically built like a 1-2-3 block. So they're very precision, hardened. So we put steel in all the necessary places. So the jaw strips with the serrated teeth and the dovetail, hardened steel. Our lead screws are normal steel material, coated. So we were able to sort of build a hybrid, if you will. So save weight where we could, but use steel in those instances where the forces are being put on the vise, we use steel. So it's a hybrid for sure.
I like this hybrid. I like the concept. And don't get me wrong, certainly in my early days as a machinist, I over-torqued half of my things because I did have a part fly off and it scared the mess out of me, right? So I have over-torqued and I probably have hurt things that don't need to be hurt. But knowing Fifth Axis, one of the things you're very famous for is that dovetail. And the fact that dovetail doesn't need so much torque that you're going to rip a vise apart, and it's still going to give the rigidity of the piece itself that make deep cuts. So the combination of a lighter material, even though softer, I don't see any detriments. I actually only see bonuses.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's funny, a lot of the early dovetail stuff we did was all based around automation because we were running lights out and it was the surefire way we knew we weren't going to throw apart, basically. So in this unit, you do have the dovetail, but you also have the serrated gripper teeth that 95% of our customers just run the gripper teeth because they work plenty good enough. And then obviously you can put soft jaws, your normal configuration, change out the jaw strips if you need, you know, a smooth face, step jaw. But yeah, you've got all your normal functionality out of this vise. It's just a little bit lighter and more suited to automation, really, especially with the cobots.
Same quality.
Same quality.
Same accuracy.
Yes.
Same reliability.
Yes.
Obviously the same support that goes along
100%,
with it, as
exactly.
you would all your things. I really just see this better in many facets. And maybe a little off topic, Matt,
Sure.
but I'm thinking about this as well because I'm excited about your products,
Right.
which is I'm saving on shipping. I'm saving on bits and
100%.
pieces all over the place because there's, again, going back to you guys being a global company,
Yeah.
I know you have great partnerships around the world.
We do.
And let's also be fair, there are countries out there that demand a discount every single day.
Absolutely.
Well, guess what? You're getting it now a little bit in shipping. You're getting it here, you're getting it there. And I know I'm having a little fun with it at this point because these are added bonuses. But ultimately, you guys are solving the automation issue. And I think that's really the key point that matters the most. Between the pushers, between having your own patented cleats here, between the lighter whole unit, but keeping the integrity of the part. All of this really matters. I think truly it's a brilliant situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing we've looked at a lot is we've got a lot of customers that'll get a robot, get a cobot, and they'll load material, right? Which is great for a lot of instances. But we also have a lot of job shops and customers that, you know, running 5 of this, 50 of that, 100 of that, where it's just easier to put material in vices. So the two considerations were weight being one, and 2 being like, okay, now I have to buy 10 plus of these, you know, 10 to 50. You got to make that reasonable for a shop owner to invest in that. And that's what we're trying to do with the price point on that vise, to make it where it makes sense so you can afford to buy the tooling for your automation system. So that's the beautiful thing about loading vices, is your pickup point for the robot's always the same. So there's no custom jaws. The vise doesn't care what you hold it. So put whatever you want in it, and the robot's going to load it. So.
My wheels are turning right now. And again, not directly related, but indirectly related. Let me just say thank you for caring about the average shop.
Yeah.
Because you were right. Now, we have conversations all the time on the MTD channel about, guys, don't focus on your initial cost. Pay attention to the price per part. We have those conversations, but the upfront cost can still sometimes be very scary. So the fact that you care about that, the fact that Fifth Axis cares about that, the fact that you just said, we know you're going to buy 10, 15, 20, maybe more of these units, and we're here to support the growth of your company in a financially responsible way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So behind us is our racking system, and we're also doing that in a similar manner where customers can start with 3 rack minimum, basically, and, you know, 6 vices, 8 vices, whatever makes sense, and sort of step their way into automation. Obviously, if you want to do a full pallet of 100, you absolutely can do that. But we want to make it so it's manageable, your ROI is quick, and it's flexible for the average shop owner.
Yeah, and as we start to close this thing out, I just want to reiterate, I know Matt says it and thinks it all the time, but it's our responsibility at MTD to do the same. If you are looking at automation, much like this, and you see all the vices and potential areas where more vices can go, it doesn't mean that every vice needs to be loaded in the same way. This can still be very much a high mix, low volume situation where you can put hot jobs in as necessary, and just being able to rely on the company that you utilize for your automation is important, but understanding where and how I can apply automation is also very important. Now, I bring that up as a small segue because we got more videos coming, my friends. And I have to ask you, we've talked a whole lot about Fifth Axis today. We've talked a whole lot, and I mean the machines and the products, 5-axis machining. We've talked about this lighter body. Are you also doing this for the 3-axis world as well?
We are indeed. Do
you think we could talk about that at some point?
We absolutely can. I got some other stuff to show you.
We have some other stuff to show you, especially Matt. We have a great shelving unit behind us. Obviously, that whole long-winded introduction was to introduce the audience and for you to allow a moment to say, we have a brand new shelving unit we'd love to introduce to the audience as well. What sets this unit apart, and why would someone want to invest in it?
Sure. So you hit on the main thing is floor space. Everyone's limited on floor space, so we tried to come up with the smallest floor space shelving unit possible. Make it modular, so the shelves are adjustable. We also have both mounting patterns on each shelf, so they're reversible. So 52 millimeter on one side, 96 on the other. So again, very open source, very user friendly. It's easy to move shelves, take shelves away if you have larger parts. It's very simple. It's like everything we do, we try to keep it simple and make it very, very easy to install, easy to work with. People can understand it. It's a few bolts, and it's just a good modular design. It's not overcomplicated.
Two things that pop up in my mind. One, you need to install an easy button on the side because that's about as easy as it gets. Just to
basically
go, I'm ready to go.
Exactly.
And then the second thing is, and we use this word probably far too much, but I think it fits perfectly here, is just the flexibility.
100%.
Because once we've gotten the audience, once we've gotten customers, once we've gotten potential customers to realize the ease of use, that they can set it up and be ready to go. They can flip the shelving around based on what's going on. The part sizes can be adjusted, and that we're vertically integrating to help that floor space as well. We also need to be flexible. I mean, this day and age, as much as we want to have a million parts of one thing, it just doesn't work like that, does it?
No.
And we're gonna have so many different things. So your flexibility, really a fantastic shelving unit.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's expandable. So as you grow, you can add more shelves, more shelving units as you add more tooling, basically. So that was a big consideration. We also thought the way it's mounted to the floor is very, very simple. So if you need to move machines, which we hate to do, but it happens, it's not a terrible thing to maneuver around the shop, basically. That we go into so many shops and everybody's configuration of the machines is different. So how do you build a modular shelving unit that works with a bunch of different shops? We tried to make it as small as a footprint as possible and very adaptable. So, with different robots and, different heights and configurations, it's really easy to put it wherever you need it. So
I didn't plan to ask you this question, but based on what you just discussed and the fact that you brought up moving machines and that we're always adapting our shops to what's going on, is it durable as well? Like when we're moving this around, because it is so adaptable to situations, oftentimes that flexibility leads to something that's not quite as durable as we want it to be. It'll fall over, or it can't hold all the vices and all the heavy parts. So I have to ask the hard questions, my friend. Is it also durable? Is it gonna fall over on me?
No, it's very durable. That was a big consideration. We wanted it to be rigid, but not overbuilt, not over-engineered. So that was a big consideration. It's absolutely rigid. We also built some really trick little scribe lines and features into the shelves to make it easy to teach the robot. So when you move it, you're not going through the headache of reteaching all the positions. You can basically teach one shelf at a time and replicate. So we've learned a lot with all the different automation cells that we've used, and sometimes moving and setting up or reteaching is a lot of work. So we tried to make that as simple as possible. And we have a lot of customers that get into automation and they have no idea that no one's gonna tell you that like you gotta reteach every position, right? So we're trying to get ahead of that. So when a customer installs the system, you're like, okay, you just reteach the shelf and you're good to go. So
something I have to say, just so you know, in case you do not know the history of Fifth Axis as a company, is that, and I get this from Matt, what Matt just said, is not everyone's going to teach you that you have to teach the cobot or the robot, all these different, they've learned the hard way. I bring this up because their work holding was created because the work holding they were using wasn't working in their 5-axis machines. So everything that they're doing, they proved on their own shop floor by buying darn near one or two of every machine on the planet. If you ever get the chance to go here, which I highly recommend. Last thing I want to ask you, again, not necessarily a hard question, because you and I have done this before, and it's a conversation we have, which is we want everyone, of course, to buy the Fifth Axis product, but you've set things up in such a way that if someone has already invested in other products, they can utilize that investment without having to throw that away and reinvest in all of these new things, which create the higher cost. So I'm going to bring it up for this shelving unit as well. If I have other products that currently exist, can I utilize them in this shelving unit, in this automation cell?
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we talk hardware, especially for automation, it's very open source. So you can buy the components a la carte as you need it. And that's a big point of emphasis for us, is we don't make all the products in the world. So certain customers have certain needs, or they have existing tooling, and we want to be able to be backwards and forwards compatible with a lot of the other brands or custom stuff that people have made. And so you can buy each piece individually as you need it. So
the product is backwards and forwards compatible. In conversation, I'm backwards and you're forwards.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I think we got all the key points,
we
right?
definitely do. We definitely do.
Well,
Depends on the day.
It does. It definitely depends on the day, but Matt's good people. Fifth Axis, great company. If there's anything else you need to learn about this product, fifthaxis.com. You can research all of it there. Really a great website. I definitely advise looking into it. Make your own decisions, of course. I'm not here to sell you anything. Matt might be. I'm here to give you information so that you can make your own intelligent decisions, and Fifth Axis is a great company. Matt, we appreciate your time.
Thank you
So much for it.
Always appreciate it. 3 bump mics, is that a thing you do? There
Absolutely.
it is. Boom.
Yep, a microphone. Cheers. All right, we are good. Did I leave anything out?
No, I think you got most of it, right? I think that was pretty
I
solid.
almost brought up every time I ask you a question, I get 10 times the information.